Crosstalk. I'm Peter Lavelle. Revolutionary or a dictator in the making. President Mohamed Morsi's presidential decrees granting him wide powers has reopened the debate about the nature and pace of political change in Egypt. His supporters see him cleaning house of the old regime loyalists. Morsi's opponents claim the Muslim Brotherhood is showing its autocratic impulses. To Crosstalk Egypt's president, I'm joined by Wael Eskandar in Cairo. He is a blogger and a journalist. In Beirut, we have Franklin Lamb. He is director of the Americans Concerned for Middle East Peace. And in Washington, we cross to Ivan Eland. He is a senior fellow and director of the Center on Peace and Liberty at the Independent Institute. All right, gentlemen, Crosstalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want. Wael in Cairo, I'd like to go to you first. The president has been widely criticized for his decree expanding his power. But others would say it was necessary, that political shock therapy is necessary for Egypt to move forward, to transform. How do you react to that?
I don't think dictatorship is ever necessary to move forward. As we've seen in the past, the military has done the same thing, and it's granted itself powers. And we've seen what they've done with these powers. They've killed a lot of Egyptians, fellow Egyptians, and they have not lived up to their mandate. So in light of that, I cannot accept that being a dictator is a way to democracy. And a man who is accepted to give himself dictatorial powers temporarily will give himself dictatorial powers permanently, especially in light of right now the Constituent Assembly being immune to any judiciary oversight. And that itself shows that he is willing to protect his powers, and the parliament to come, who he expects to be mostly of Muslim Brotherhood, I would expect.
Okay, Franklin, but the president was elected, democratically elected, and he has a mandate for change. Yeah. So go ahead, Franklin.
Well, that's right, and I think it's an overstatement to conclude so quickly that he's a dictator. I think he's defending the revolution. The reason he had to act is that the Judicial Council was going to overturn and block the Constitution and prevent it from being finalized. And I frankly believe him when he says these measures were necessary, they were temporary. I think that the people are going to, by and large, get behind him on this. I think the White House is willing to give him a little space. It's not pretty, but I dispute the idea that always in history temporary powers become permanent powers. I agree that that's what happened in '52 and ever since in Egypt, and of course that's what happened in Nazi Germany. Kept temporary, kept erasing every 4 years the Weimar Constitution or postponing it. There's danger, but I think that his instincts have been demonstrated, and I think that the support that he has means that we don't have a lot to worry about. Of course he's going to be watched. Yeah, he made a mistake. He took a chainsaw when he just needed a scalpel to adjust things. But he's paying a price politically. He's learning. And I think from the demonstrations today, the people are understanding. I mean, they're out there, but not in the numbers that were expected. So I think give him a couple of weeks and let's see what happens. Okay, I don't think it's a power grab.
Okay, Ivan, yeah, everyone uses the term power grab. Ivan, where do you come out on this? Because I guess the litmus test is the next elections, okay, when they have a constitution. Shouldn't criticism be, muted at this point?
Well, I think we have to not be enamored with democracy. Sometimes democracy brings bad leaders to power, like Adolf Hitler. So I think we need minority rights and liberties in addition, and constraints on power such as the U.S. has in its checks and balances system. But as far as a power grab, yeah, he probably was trying to grab power. I think he attempted to, get rid of the generals with the Sinai incident, which he successfully did. And I think he was taking advantage of to try to get as much power as he could. I think he overstepped, and I'm a little scared that this could be an attempt by him and his party to run roughshod over Egypt. But I think the United States primarily should stay out of this because the Egyptians are giving him ample pushback on this. They've got people in the streets, they've got protests, they've got a judicial strike, etc. So the Egyptians' democracy is working so far. People in the United States try to grab power all the time, and I sort of disagree, because usually, even in the United States, where we do have a democracy, temporary measures often become permanent, and not always, but often, and I think it has to be watched. But I think the Egyptians have to watch it themselves. The U.S. and other countries should stay out of this and just let events take their course in Egypt. I think the Egyptian people so far are doing fine in constraining this power grab.
Well, what do you think about that? I mean,
yeah,
aren't you?
He was praised. He was praised when he reined in the army. That's the first time in 6 decades since the king that you haven't had military control. He got lots of accolades from that, and now some people are jumping on him. But I think he needs a little more time. But I agree, it's very serious. When you co-opt a judicial review, it means you wipe out the judiciary, and the legislature hasn't formed yet. So yeah, it looks like a pharaoh. But hopefully it's going to be temporary, and he'll come through as Obama has confidence in him. You saw that interview where Obama said he really enjoyed talking to him those 5 or 6 times on Gaza. He said he found that the guy spoke and thought like an engineer. Well, hey, he was trained by an engineer, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think the Americans, as our colleague said from Washington, they will stay out of this unless it really turns south, which I don't think it's going to do. And I think it is maybe a little bold to suggest that actually, in spite of this so-called power assumption, he may come out stronger. He may come out stronger because when the Constitution is adopted and when there's a legislature and these policies, these temporary measures evaporate, then I think he will stand with even a higher stature than he got out of Gaza.
Okay, well, what do you think about this? Because I mean, he was elected to change the country. He's making bold moves right now, and he does have a lot of support.
Right. The general rhetoric backing Morsi is always a little more time, and that is. Let's consider that. Since last year, the Brotherhood, they've had powers and they've been in parliament, and we've seen how they've reacted to every single crisis. And nothing about what they're doing is revolutionary. They had the power to issue legislation, and instead they used it to praise the army, who have killed people, and they've supported the army. Morsi's speeches themselves speak out that he is willing to protect the police. The police is brutal as ever. Right now, they're still using excessive force with protesters, and that hasn't been addressed. So he is currently targeting the public prosecutor. So in my opinion, that is just a takeover and a power grab. The fact that there is no mass popular support except from Ikhwanis, right, from the Muslim Brotherhood supporters themselves, the members. What we've seen as well is that Morsi does not rule the entire Egypt. He calls in the guidance office to give him his mandate. I don't think anything is revolutionary about this power grab. Particularly in light of the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, which sees Egypt as a strictly Islamic nation and does not really account for all the other forces. There's no power sharing to indicate that there is going to be any cleanup process. And so therefore, for me, it's a takeover. Why has there been no police reform? If there really is an intention to clean up house, then the police is the first thing you reform, because people went out against the police brutality. And I haven't seen any measures taken. On the contrary, one of the Muslim Brotherhood members, has admitted that they were using shotguns to attack protesters. At the same time, Hisham Kandil, the prime minister, has made it obvious that Tantawi and Anan, who are responsible for a lot of murders, will not be brought to trial. So in light of that attitude, I cannot interpret it as a revolutionary move. I can only interpret it as a power grab.
Okay, even Eland, I mean, it seems very interesting to me is that, okay, we have the Muslim Brotherhood has the presidency, okay, and we have an assembly that's not really empowered. So, but the rest of it is just Mubarak's Egypt. It's still in place. This is probably the reason for this quote-unquote power grab.
Yeah. I mean, I think certainly there are institutional leftovers, but I think you can justify the initial him getting rid of the military. Sure, he was elected, but I think you do have to watch leaders that we don't go down a wrong road. I don't think necessarily we've gone down a wrong road yet, because I think, as I say, the Egyptians are pushing back, and I say, any country, you have people who want power. People just love power, and you have to have checks and balances in one way or another, whether it's the street or institutions. I don't think Egypt is quite there on the institutions yet, but of course they're in transition. We can't expect perfection, and I think we do have to deal with the leader that was elected, and certainly the United States and other countries can watch and coax a bit, but it's a slippery slope. I think the United States has done far too much intervention in the Middle East, and Egypt is a very important country, but I think the problem is best left to the Egyptians, and I think that's what's happening here. So it could work out fine, or it could go the other way. We don't know. But
okay, let me go to Franklin in Beirut.
Whatever happens should be an Egyptian solution to the problem.
Franklin, you wanted to say something before we go to the break. Go ahead.
Well, just that, of course, things are happening very fast. He needs more time. In his defense, and his advisors tend to agree, there were a couple of dissents, is that had he not acted, there wouldn't be a constitution, and then no legislature. So what was he to do? It was sure to be defeated by the same Mubarak clique that is the Judicial Council. He wants
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to jump in. We're going to go to a short break, and after that short break, we'll continue our discussion on Egypt. Stay with RT. Welcome back to Crosstalk. I'm Peter Wael. To remind you, we're talking about the Egyptian president. Okay, well, if I go back to you in Cairo, okay, you're obviously on the ground, but I've been given a lot of reports that a lot of the president's supporters are jubilant about this because finally he can push forward an agenda.
Yes, his supporters are jubilant, but consider in what way. They were asked to go down and protest in support of Morsi's decrees before they even knew what they were. And so they were happy about them before he even said them. So therefore, I don't think that this is a real reflection of how people feel. The fact that they would go out and celebrate what they don't know is an indication that they're being moved and ordered around through a giant organization like the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, the fact is, on the street,
they didn't go out. You said they went out. They didn't go out. They called it off. They called it off. They went out to there. The Muslim Brotherhood rally.
They went out.
They said they were going to try to assuage the other side. I'm talking about today.
That's inaccurate. They went out on Thursday before the decree.
Today's rally has been called off. Okay. Yes.
Right. Because they want to cooperate with the other side and try some dialogue.
Okay,
but they went out on Thursday before the decrees, which is important.
Okay, yeah. Franklin, go ahead.
This is I'm sorry, but this is very, very important.
Well, just to say that I think that we've got to give the Egyptian people credit. They had a revolution after 6 decades of dictatorship. Everything's not going to be perfect. I'm sure a lot of those cops out there belong in jail. It's going to take some time. But the fact is, the excitement and the historic aspect is that people are speaking out. Now they're probably not. They're feeling more able to demonstrate and to have a moderately free press and to confront, and that's the big difference. So in a sense, I think it is revolutionary, and we've got to give credit to the governmental institutions and the social institutions which have a glorious, a strong history in Egypt. They haven't disappeared. So I think this dissent, I think it's healthy. I think the focus is on him. I think he's going to learn learn a lot, and the people will. And I think right now we can't condemn the man. Power grab, maybe. But I think it's difficult to make that case. I think we just have to see what happens even the next week.
Let's go back to Cairo. Let's go back. It's fair time. Let's go back to Cairo.
Yes, let's not distort the facts. They went out on Thursday before the decree to celebrate. Today's protests were called off. But on Thursday before the decree, they were celebrating, and they didn't know what they were celebrating. And the fact of the matter is that
everybody knows they're organized.
Franklin has ignored the majority of people on the street. I've been out on the street. We've gone through marches in places that have been anti-revolutionary, and they are very upset about the Muslim Brotherhood. In Shubra, people are asking, are you Ikhwan or from the people? This is a very dangerous sign, and President Morsi should not ignore it at all. And what I see right now is that he is ignoring all the different powers that tell him, stop, this is not what we want. Okay, these are normal people. We're not talking about the ex-Mubarak regime, who, by the way, he's used in ministries to form his government.
Yeah. I agree. I spent a week in Cairo just last
I don't
week.
think that anyone but the Muslim Brotherhood supporters are on board with this power grab.
Franklin, do you want to reply to that? Go ahead.
Well, just that I accept that a lot of people have questions about the Muslim Brotherhood, you know, for their past and their broken promises that they weren't going to run for the legislature and they weren't going to run a presidential candidate. And they're very well organized. They've got money and organization that no other parties had. So they've got power. They can turn people out on Thursday. They can tell them not to come today. But I concede what you say. I spent a lot of time at the universities in the last week, talked to a lot of people. A lot of people don't like the Muslim Brotherhood because they're afraid, and their fear is based on ignorance of what's going to happen. Remember history. Red China. Everyone was terrified. By God, you got an economy going, and now they're everybody's friend. So the question is, will the economic, which is a big problem and what Morsi's been working on also, depending on the prosperity of Egypt, as someone who's there, would you not agree that ideology, even religion, has a way of melding and mellowing if there's economic progress? And I think that's why a lot of this fear of the Brotherhood is based on lack of information, which is reasonable since there's been a secretive organization.
Okay, Ivan, do you consider it important that, you know, the current president of Egypt, I mean, he saw how his predecessor was overthrown, okay? I mean, he knows the crowds can come out and make political change. Yeah. Do you think this is part of his calculation?
Well, I think he did overstep. I mean, I agree that he was probably trying to say this Constitutional Assembly, which has been nixed once before, and the Parliament, he tried to reopen that, and the judiciary nixed him. And of course, the judiciary is a holdover from the Mubarak era, so nobody's completely clean here. But I think he probably did overstep and try to get power. But I don't say that the system is totally broken. I think it's barely been, you know, revised here, and I think we have to see how it plays out. Certainly, people, as I say, in many countries, people try to overstep by grabbing power, and you have to have some check on them, whether it's the streets or the judiciary or something. And of course, checks and balances are a good thing, whether they're informal or formal. And I think they're more informal in Egypt because they don't have, their institutions are in a state of flux. So we have to wait and see, and I certainly think this man has been elected, which is, of course, more than Mubarak and the rest of the rulers before him were. So he does have some popular legitimacy. The parliament was 3/4 Islamist, and the United States or the West might not like that, but that's what they have to work with, and I think they should work with them because that's what Egypt has elected.
Well, you know, we can take virtue from necessity here. Will this help the opposition organize better?
Yeah, I think that this is exactly what is happening right now, that the opposition is uniting because it's such a blatant power grab that no one accepts and that they need to stick together. Even the supporters of the former regime are joining protests in Tahrir. People who've never been out there to protest and have condemned all protesting in Tahrir. These people are joined by all the revolutionary forces. And I would have to disagree with the idea that everyone opposing Morsi is afraid of the Muslim Brotherhood, because so many people have given him their votes. And the fact of the matter is that these same people who have given him their votes are disenchanted because they do not believe in the value that you can achieve a democracy by a complete dictatorship, especially that Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhoods were in power. And we've seen nothing democratic at all to give us hope that this is what they'll do.
You know, frankly, I think it's very interesting to stay with the same theme. I think this is a godsend for the opposition to get themselves organized. Okay? They complain. Now they have an opportunity.
Absolutely, and that's democratic. And that wasn't probably so possible until this presidential election. But again, I would say, you know, he made a mistake. He knows he made a mistake, and his people know. 2 of his cabinet members resigned. I understand one of them may be coming back. As I mentioned earlier, the guy used a chainsaw to do something when he should have used a scalpel. Let's give him the benefit of, well, we don't have to give him the benefit of the doubt, but give him, before we you know, make a final judgment, let's see what he does in the next year, because now, I beg your pardon, the next week, because now he seems to even be a little bit remorseful. His Yasser Ali, his spokesman, has been trying to qualify it and parse it and say, look, it's temporary. Let's find out. You know, there's not a lot we can do about it in the short term.
Go ahead. Wael, go ahead. You want to jump in there?
I'm unclear whether it was revolutionary. Yes, I want to jump in there and ask Franklin here. He said 2 opposite things. First he said it was revolutionary, then he said it was a mistake. Which one is it? And if it is a mistake, he should reverse that mistake. That's as simple as that. Give him a chance to reverse his mistake rather than use it. So therefore, I don't think a chainsaw should be used.
It wasn't a total mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It was clumsy. It was clumsy what he did. It wasn't a mistake. And what's revolutionary about it is the whole thing that we're experiencing in Egypt, and his leadership and the support of the people taking to the streets. That's revolutionary. That's even democratic. But I didn't mean to say, you know, to present a contradiction. I think, and I take your point on that. But he did it poorly. I wouldn't concede that it was necessarily a mistake, because to defend the revolution, he needed a constitution. The people deserve that. That's what they voted for. That's what they went to Tahrir Square for. They also wanted, you know, a more active government, and they wanted a functioning parliament. And this was the only way he saw that it could be done. He was elected. They asked him to make a judgment. He did it in a clumsy way. He's backtracked a little bit. But now let's see what happens and give him a time to follow through on this and straighten it out. I think he will.
I think, well, how do you think this bodes for the Arab Spring and democratization of the region?
Well, I think that what you're seeing is a pushback on the leader who, in my view, I have a very cynical view of politicians in any country, that they always want more power. And so I think you need checks, and I think you're seeing that. So I think perhaps these revolutions may eventually reach a compromise, and that's what's happening in Egypt. I don't think the thing is going down, you know, necessarily going down the toilet here. I think it could very well be saved by the people, and there may reach a harmony of where they constrain the president and make him live within the law and constitutional arrangements. We'll have to see, but certainly right now, because there's no parliament and there's no constitution, we see that the check is the people, and that, of course, has to be institutionalized somewhere, but all is not lost here, I don't think.
Well, I'll give you the last word. How is democracy in Egypt today? 20 seconds.
People have the power to make it a democracy, but I would go out on a limb and say that President Morsi is the counter-revolution. And you can read through the Constituent Assembly, the draft they put out, that more freedoms are being taken away from us. And this is not the revolution. We asked for bread,
on that
cream,
thought,
and
gentlemen, we've run out of time. Thank you very much.
Many
thanks to my guests today in Beirut, Cairo, and in Washington. And thanks to our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time, and remember, Crosstalk rules.